Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I am your host, Jackson Rudolph, and we are live for episode 85. This is the season finale, really kind of the first season finale that we've ever had of the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I would say that really it's been two seasons, right? The first phase of the Jackson Rudolph podcast was before our involvement with Black Belt Magazine. I was just kind of doing it by myself. We were audio only. I was putting some graphics that I made using my Snapchat account on my Instagram. It was rough early on, but I was really just doing it because I enjoyed talking about sport karate. That second phase, or the second season, which is what we're ending today, is the involvement with Black Belt Magazine. We are not ending the partnership with Black Belt Magazine. We're just ending this season. Coming up, I've got some final exams at medical school and then traveling to see my family over the holidays, which is the reason we're going to put the season to an end here today with my year-end award show. And then we'll be back in early January with season 3 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast. We might change up some of the branding a little bit, but it's still going to be here on Black Belt Magazine. We're going to be doing more live shows in season 3. And again, the whole season thing is kind of unofficial. The first phase was when we were audio only, pre-Black Belt Magazine. Now we have the video component. We're doing more live streams. This has been season 2. That's the majority of the 85 episodes here. And then episode 86, starting in 2022, will be season 3. We're going to be bringing some new features to the show, maybe new backgrounds. You see that I'm trying to mix it up a little bit tonight for the special season finale. It's December. Holiday season is officially underway. That's why we're getting festive with the Christmas tree. We got some fire in the background. I know it's fake, but we're having a good time. And this episode is really special because I'm going to be recognizing a bunch of sport karate athletes who I feel deserve that recognition. And we're not just talking about the adult competitors. We're talking about juniors. We're talking about seniors. We're talking about coaches. We're talking about team executives. And basically the vision for this episode is, hey, what if sport karate had year-end awards like you see in the NFL or the NBA? Or, of course, there's an MVP and a Rookie of the Year and a Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year. All these various awards that get given out to a lot of the major sports. What if we did that for sport karate? So one thing that I cannot make clear enough, these are not any kind of an official award. This is not the Black Belt Magazine MVP award. It is not that. That is not what we're doing tonight. This is Jackson on his podcast shouting out some athletes who had an incredible season for one reason or another, and really just having fun and talking about this. And it's meant to be a discussion. This podcast is streaming live right now. It's not pre-recorded like some of my other shows, so I am actually talking to you right this second. So drop those comments down below if you've got questions, if you've got thoughts on who you think should win some of these awards. I want to see those in the comments. I'm going to be switching between some of the banners, so I'm not going to see the comments all the time. But I'll switch back and forth so that I can look at the comments and see what everybody's chiming in. I see we've already got 28 active viewers right now. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you hit that share button right now while we're still live so you can get as many of your friends and family coming to watch as possible, spreading the gospel of sport karate, and we're going to get right into it. So you may have seen some of my social media promotion leading into this episode talking about how there were going to be MVPs and these various awards. I will say right here at the beginning, there are some awards being given out that I did not post about beforehand. So if you think you've seen it all just based on the promos, that's not true. There are some other awards that you're going to notice I've thrown in as the show goes on tonight. And then also I've broken things up quite a bit to be fair to all competitors, right? So it's not like I'm naming one MVP over all of competitive martial arts. Absolutely not. What this is I've actually split it up into adults, seniors, juniors, men's and women's, as well as fighting or forms and weapons. And then obviously the special categories are broken down a little bit more than that. So the MVP awards in particular are going to be MVPs of particular divisions. And I might give little hints to, who I think would be the overall MVP if you had to pick one. But that's going to be the format of the show this evening. So I'm going to go ahead, like I mentioned, I'm going to switch over to the comments and see if we've gotten anything yet. Let's see. We got Alex Dingman. Shout out to Inside Scoop and the Martial Arts Center Network. Love to see you in the chat, my guy. Richard Osborne Jr. says share. Absolutely. Hit that share button. And shout out to the Open Martial Arts Tournament discussion group that Richard Osborne heads up. It is a great forum for all types of productive sport karate conversation. So Mr. Osborne, shout out to you for making that possible for all of us. And Alex Dingman saying best podcast of the year, Inside Scoop. Hey, if I was going to do it and I wasn't going to say my podcast, I'd say it for Inside Scoop. So shout out to the guys over at Inside Scoop, Alex Dingman, Jeff Doss. And shout out to Jeff Doss for his new spot with Team Heartland. Looks like they're doing a Southeast division of their team, so I'm really excited to learn more about that. And that's a huge pickup. Jeff Doss is a legend, so congratulations to you guys. But now we're going to dive right into it. I'm going to switch back to my banner screen here, and we're going to start off with a bang. We're going to start off. I got everything written down right here. I'm not going to show you yet. We're going one at a time. And I'm going to start off with a special award that was not advertised previously. It wasn't in any of my promos for this episode. And this is the Sportsperson of the Year award. So it's kind of inspired by like the Walter Payton Man of the Year award in the NFL. And really, I made this award up after going through everything. It was the last one that I made because there was a competitor that I felt needed to be highlighted, and I wanted to find the right way to highlight that competitor. So without further ado, the 2021 Sportsperson of the Year in Sport Karate, according to the Jackson Rudolph podcast, we've got none other than Sammy Smith. And the reason that I said that Sammy Smith should receive this award, obviously there's a lot of worthy competitors, coaches, executives, things of that nature that could have been named the Sportsperson of the Year. The reason I'm going with Sammy is not just what she did in the ring. Obviously, she was dominant in the ring, as she always is, running some of the best forms in the world in that women's extreme forms and weapons division. But it was all the things that she was doing off the mat as well. Earlier in the year, we launched Sport Karate University. That was a huge project that's designed to bring sport karate to more athletes, right? If you're a martial artist, if you're a young martial artist listening, that your school's maybe more traditional and you want the opportunity to do some sport karate training, Sport Karate University was designed for you. And even though Sammy and I partnered on that project, that was 100% Sammy's idea. Sammy came to me and said, hey, I've got this idea. How can we make it work? And I was fortunate with my connections at Black Belt Magazine to help make it happen. But that is 100% Sammy's brainchild. So shout out to Sammy Smith for that. And in addition, from a Team Paul Mitchell perspective, Sammy's been a great mentor. You know, she and I are two of the active veterans on the team now. And she had a situation this year where a new up-and-coming rising star in Haley Glass came up into the women's division, was added to Team Paul Mitchell. Sammy has been an excellent mentor for Haley. The relationship between the two of them has been really, really special to watch. And so I tip my cap to Sammy Smith for the way that she's handled so many things over the course of this year, both on the mat, in the ring, competing at a high level, as well as handling all those things off the mat. She's a great private lesson coach as well. She's got a lot of her individual students that we see out there on the NASCA circuit competing and winning all the time. And you guys are going to get some news about maybe one of Sammy Smith's students coming up here in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for some other news that's going to be breaking in the near future. But the first award for this evening is Sammy Smith as the Sportsperson of the Year. Okay, let's see. They got a couple of comments coming in, so I'm going to switch it up and have a look. Alex Demon says hashtag Warrior Cup for Sammy. Absolutely. That was something that Sammy revealed on Inside Scoop earlier this year, was that if she could win a Warrior Cup, then that would maybe be one of the things that would kind of help her ride off into the sunset and go to retirement. And as a competitor that is closer to the end of my career than to the beginning, I understand how special that would be to be able to get, one of those big wins that you've wanted for a long time. And again, ride off into the sunset that way. And we've seen many legends over the years be able to do that in sport karate. And Sammy's certainly somebody who deserves that. But to find out how that goes down, you'll have to tune into the AKA Warrior Cup, which is going to have some exclusive coverage thanks to Black Belt Magazine, sportmartialarts.com, Jungo TV, Matt Action. So make sure you guys are staying tuned to that as well to get all of the live updates from the AKA Warrior Cup in 2022. So one more time, Jackson Rudolph Podcast, Sportsperson of the Year, we got Sammy Smith. Now, we're going to move on into the MVPs because I know I posted a poll in the Open Martial Arts Tournament discussion asking which awards you guys were most excited to find out about. And, of course, MVP was high on that list. So we're going to kick things off with the Men's Fighting Most Valuable Player Award for 2021. Again, this is by the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. This is not a Black Belt Magazine award. This is just me. And we're going with Team Straight Up's Bailey Murphy. This was Bailey Murphy's. In my opinion, it was his breakout season. Obviously, he's been a great fighter for years now. He's been winning in the adult division. He's won overall grands before this season. But this was the season that people kind of looked left and right and said, he's one of the best in the world. He could be the best in the world, right? So Bailey Murphy had an absolute dominant season. there were certain tournaments that he just absolutely took over. You look at the Battle of Atlanta, where he dominated in the open weight. I think he spread every single opponent on his way to that open weight title, wins his lightweight grand championship as well. He's been successful in the VFT. We've seen him winning last man standing. Battle of Atlanta, helping his team, winning team fights. I'm pretty sure Bailey Murphy went undefeated for the entire weekend at the Battle of Atlanta across the divisions that he competes in. So Bailey Murphy, a very deserving recipient of the Men's Fighting MVP Award. And I will say it was a close one. There were other names that you can absolutely make an argument for that you guys will hear come up later in the show tonight. Obviously, his heavyweight combatant in the virtual fight tour, last man standing at Diamonds, Everill Plowden, definitely an MVP caliber competitor. So he was in that mix as well. And then you've got Elijah Everill from over in Great Britain, who beat Bailey at the Waco World Championships. The reason that I would go Bailey over Elijah for this particular MVP award is just because we got to see more of Bailey, right? Bailey was at more events and therefore won more events. And I'm not going to take away somebody's supposed MVP because they lost one fight, right? That's not fair to anybody. And like I said, you'll hear some of these names coming back up again. But that's kind of who was in the mix, in my opinion. It was down to Bailey, Everill, and Elijah. And just because of him having his breakout season and some of the moments that he was able to secure victory in, I went with Bailey Murphy for the MVP here. We're going to move on down the list a little bit. We're now going to switch it up. There's going to be a women's fighting MVP, but I'm going to do the men's and then the women's. So now we're going to go to the men's forms and weapons MVP. I said that point fighting was close. The forms and weapons one was super close, right? I'm going to start by naming a few of the people who were in the mix that I have a ton of respect for that had great seasons. You got a guy like Danny Etkin, a Team Paul Mitchell teammate of mine, who had some incredible performances in that men's CMX forms category, winning a diamond ring, winning the U.S. Open, winning just about everything there is to win. You got a guy like Jake Presley, who came out his rookie season in the adult division and was dominant in that traditional weapons division, holding it down for Team Paul Mitchell and securing overall grand championships there. I'm fairly certain Jake Presley went undefeated in his traditional weapons efforts this year. You also got a guy like Rashad Eugene, who won 3 overall grand championships in one tournament at the American Internationals. He also won 2 overall grand championships in one tournament at the Pan American Internationals. He's been a mainstay on the stage and the fan favorite. However, the MVP, if I had to pick one, and those of you who know me well know me that I'm a huge fan of this competitor, we are going with none other than top 10 Team USA's Mason Stowell. So the reason that I give this award to Mason Stowell is really because of not only being able to win things like the U.S. Open ISKA World Championship title, the Diamond Ring, but at Battle of Atlanta in particular, there was a very special event where Battle of Atlanta kind of had a champion of champions ordeal where all of the overall grand champion winners for the seniors and the 18 to 29 divisions competed against one another. And Mason Stowell took it all the way and won that, which is incredibly difficult to do. Mason Stowell also found himself in a difficult position compared to some of the other adult competitors where there was already an incumbent consistent champion in Joey Castro of Team KTOC who Mason had to go up into the adult division and compete against. And Mason was still able to find success despite that excellent competitor in Joey Castro. And so for those reasons, that's why I would go with Mason Stowell as the 2021 Men's Forms and Weapons MVP, but absolutely that one's really close, right? You got a lot of guys who had dominant seasons. Of course, Mason was dominant. Danny was dominant. Jake was dominant. And each of them kind of dominant in these individual divisions. Traditional forms for Mason, CMX forms for Danny, traditional weapons for Jake. And I'll admit, I also try to temper my personal Paul Mitchell bias a little bit. I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, yeah, this Paul Mitchell teammate, right? So Mason, maybe you got a few bonus points there for being top 10 USA and me trying to fight against my own bias. But absolutely all those guys are deserving, and congratulations to Mason Stowell for being the MVP, in my opinion. I see we're getting some more comments, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it up. Let's have a look here. Alex agrees with me on Bailey Murphy. Angel mentioning Rashad. Absolutely. Rashad could have been a great choice for this as well. I mentioned some of the accomplishments that he's had. Jeannie Jones chiming in. Winston says he loves you. Love you too, Winston. Winston Jones, Team Competitive Edge member, longtime student of mine. He is wicked with the commas. Shout out Winston Jones. And we're going to keep things moving right along here, y'all. So we're going to switch back to the banners here. And we are now on to the women's fighting most valuable player. And this one, I feel like, was a little bit more obvious. Now, there was another competitor who was close here. However, I feel confident in saying that the most valuable player in women's fighting this season, none other than Morgan Plowden, right? Diamond ring champion, came out, won that diamond ring, and did that diamond ring after facing some adversity, right? In the open weight the night before, she lost to Everill, who's the other competitor that I'm going to shout out as one of the top female point fighters in the world. So shout out to Kitana as well. She absolutely deserves her roses too. But then Morgan turned it around 24 hours later, got on stage Saturday night for the diamond ring final, and was able to defeat the hometown Everill, who had just beat her the night before. And really, I was sitting stage side watching that, did it in pretty dominant fashion. Morgan controlled a lot of that fight, and it was a very, very impressive performance from Morgan. Not to mention the fact that Morgan also captured the U.S. Open crown this year as well. And when you win the U.S. Open and the Diamonds, two of the most prestigious sport karate tournaments in the United States, it's going to be hard not to be the MVP, right? Mason Stowell did the same thing. So you guys will notice kind of a common theme here. Bailey Murphy doing something similar as well, right? So you'll notice a common theme. U.S. Open and Diamonds carried a lot of weight, and Morgan Plowden absolutely deserving of an MVP award for women's fighting. We're going to keep rolling on. Now we go to the women's forms and weapons MVP. And then this one I don't think will surprise anybody. Despite having an excellent competitor in Sammy Smith, who I already recognized as the Sportsperson of the Year, Hayley Glass was absolutely dominant this season. Double U.S. Open ISKA World Championships, double diamond ring titles, winning overalls at the Battle of Atlanta as well, getting the call to move up to represent Team Paul Mitchell in the middle of the season. The Paul Mitchell executives, to my knowledge, were blown away by her performances at the Battle of Atlanta and the U.S. Open. And so the decision to recruit Hayley Glass to the team just made sense. And it's something that Hayley really has deserved for a long time. So it's great to have her wearing the black and white. And she really did have a great season this year. It's very difficult. You know, like I mentioned with Mason moving up and having that great battle with Joey Castro, when you move up and there's an incumbent champion that's in that division, it's very difficult for a junior competitor or somebody who was just a junior competitor, a rookie moving up into the adult division. It's very difficult to overcome that hurdle, and Hayley Glass was able to do that very effectively. And she also stepped up her game significantly. I thought that she was already a world-class competitor when she was a junior. I think everybody thought that. But Hayley was a different competitor this season. She was stronger. She was faster. She was cleaner. Her releases in her comma form had more difficulty. So Hayley did a lot of things that helped her step her game up and secure the Women's Forms and Weapons MVP award. And absolutely, I cannot give enough respect to Sammy Smith for also being a dominant champion up there in that division. And those two ladies going head to head. It's a common theme that I talk about on the podcast. We often see these great rivalries happening in that women's division. Right now, it's Sammy and Hayley. Before that, it was Sammy and Mackenzie Emery. But going back before that, you got like Becca Ross, Caitlin Deschelle, and then a little bit after that, you've got like the Audrey Donahue, Michaela Johnson, and that mixed in with the Caitlin Deschelle era as well. You go back before that, your Lauren Carney's, your Casey Marks Nash's. The women's division has kind of been defined for several decades now by these great rivalries at the top of the division, and it seems like that next chapter is going to be Sammy and Hayley. So big congratulations to both of them for being the amazing competitors that they are. And that's going to do it for the adult 18 to 29 MVP awards. Now we're going to transition to some of the more unique awards, right? So the MVPs, I did that for seniors, juniors, adults. I did that for everybody. But a lot of these kind of more specific, more niche awards are really going to be focused on just that adult division, because otherwise this would have been like a 3-hour show, and I don't think anybody wants to sit through a 3-hour show. Maybe you do. If you do, drop that in the comments too. Let me know. But now we're going to move on to one that I was really excited about, which is the most improved players. We're going to kick things off with the men's fighting most improved players. And I say players plural because I couldn't pick one on this one. There are two gentlemen that I have named the men's fighting MIPs, or most improved players, and we've got none other than Brandon Ballou of Team Straight Up and Darren D-Stacks Payne of Team Next Level. These two guys, I couldn't pick in between them, right? Both of them heavyweights. Both of them took a big jump this year and really proved that they can be heavyweights who can contend for overall grand championship titles. We saw Ballou break through and win the heavyweight overall grand at the Battle of Atlanta. Then we saw Darren Payne do the same thing at the American Internationals and go into the VFT last man standing against Enrique Latona. And so the seasons, these breakout seasons that Darren Payne and Ballou had, I thought were really impressive. I watch Brandon fight a lot because Brandon and I are friends. I've competed against Brandon for a long time. I have never fought Brandon, but he and I have done our bow forms against each other a few times. He would kick my butt if we were sparring. But anyway, so I watched Brandon a lot. And really the thing that impressed me most, and I think I said this on one of the, maybe I said this when I was commentating for the Battle of Atlanta finals alongside Mallory Woods. The increase in the quality and the quickness of Ballou's footwork is incredible, right? And I think that some of that comes from training with Bailey, who we all know has elite world-class footwork in that point fighting division. But the way that Brandon moves around the ring is something that I did not see from him before this season. And it's allowing him to set up opportunities to score. Everybody kind of knows Brandon is more of a brawler. He's going to hit you hard. If you hit him late, he's going to hit you late, right? He's a tough guy fighter. And when you get a tough guy fighter that has that movement and finesse to his game as well, that can be a very dangerous combination, right? Makes me think of like a Trevor Nash, who's known as a tough guy, but also had that finesse to his game. Now, with Trevor, it was more of his kicking element that gave him that finesse aspect to his game. With Brandon, I see it in his movement. So I'm not saying Brandon and Trevor are alike in the style that they fight, but I think that they're alike in the fact that they're both kind of tough guys that have elements of their game that add this really nice finesse that creates a total package. So most improved players, shout out Ballou, shout out Darren D-Stacks Payne. You guys deserved it. I see more comments coming in, so I'm going to check these out. What do we got here? What do we got? We got people shouting out Haley Glass. Absolutely. Dax Allen says he wants a 3-hour podcast. Michael Brumet says he wants about 3 hours. Amy Cintron. Okay, maybe in season 3, we'll start bringing out a 3-hour podcast. I don't know. If you guys want it, I can deliver for you guys. But anyway, we get Jeannie Jones saying the same thing. So thank you guys for all the support. Really, this podcast wouldn't be possible without all of you that are tuning in right now. So I can't say thank you enough to everybody tuning in. We get a shout out from Carrie Garrett for D-Stacks. I mean, yeah, and I can't pick between those two guys, right? If you guys want to try to duke it out down in the comments and figure out between Ballou and D-Stacks which guy should get the nod in terms of the most improved fighter, you guys go for it. But I can't pick. Both those guys are incredible. Both of them made big jumps in their game this season. Now we move on back to the forms and weapons side, and we've got the men's forms and weapons most improved player. This one I felt was obvious. This one, I'm just going to come out and say it because how obvious I thought it was. Rashad Eugene, right? Rashad is somebody that I've competed against for a long time. He's somebody that deserves every ounce of the respect that he gets. And the thing that impressed me most about what Rashad did this year is that Rashad transformed from a competitor who oftentimes only competed for the crowd, did crazy stuff. 2020 Battle of Atlanta, did a form with a broom, right? Stuff that the crowd absolutely loves, but it didn't always translate to winning overall grand championships. This year, Rashad Eugene made the adjustments necessary to secure those overall grand championships. And he didn't just secure overall grand championships, he did it in dominant fashion when he did it, right? Remember the headline that I wrote for the American Internationals, the Black Mamba strikes thrice, because he won 3 overall grands. He won the CMX forms, he won the CMX weapons, and he won the traditional weapons, right? I don't know if that's ever happened under the current format where traditional weapons and CMX weapons are split, that somebody has also been able to go and win the CMX forms category as well. So the fact that he did that in a single tournament is extremely impressive, and it's a testament to how much he has matured as a competitor and how much he has improved as a competitor. He goes for crazy stuff. His basics have consistently gotten better. So Rashad, and you and I are buddies. I know if you're watching, shout out to you, my man. You've earned it. Probably the most sought-after free agent in the game right now. He doesn't have a logo on his back. He probably should have a logo on his back. So for you teams that are looking for an ace adult competitor, Rashad Eugene, somebody that you should definitely be looking at. So shout out to Rashad, definitely one of the most improved adult competitors in 2021. I also I'm going to pull out my notes here because I do want to recognize a couple of other adult forms and weapons competitors that made big jumps. Huge shout out to Alex Mancias. Alex Mancias, a relatively recent addition to Team Paul Mitchell, but it feels like he's brand new because he lost some of his time due to the COVID-19 pandemic when we weren't having tournaments. And he was brought onto the team to bolster our fighting team. The dude just went to the Diamond Nationals and won the men's weapons diamond ring, one of the most coveted titles in the sport. Something that I've won before, something that Reed Presley's won before. Calvin Chokas famously won it. Ross Levine, obviously going all the way back to like Mike Bernardo. I mean, that men's weapons award, I mean, you see me wearing the award right now, right? That men's weapons award is a huge deal at the Diamond Nationals. And Alex Mancias went and did it with his combo routine. So huge shout out to Alex Mancias. The improvement that he's made in the weapons category is incredible. He's a mean forms competitor as well. I also have to give a shout out to one of Rashad and Alex's combatants in that weapons division, Connor Chastain of Team Infinity. He has been consistently improving. And honestly, the reason that I didn't give him the award is because he's been good, right? It's not that in 2021, Connor Chastain made some type of crazy jump. He's been really, really good for the last several years. We saw him making it to the stage and winning some overalls in his last year as a junior and then moving up into the adult division. He's been a mainstay on stage. And so a big shout out to Connor Chastain as well. And since I didn't break it down for the junior competitors into the most improved and all that, I am also going to give a quick shout out to Philip Brumet as a competitor in the junior division, who made a really big leap this year and kind of made himself known on the national stage, made stage at U.S. Open, and then also won his first career overall grand championship at the Pan American Internationals. So huge shout out to Philip Brumet as well as being one of the most improved competitors across the whole circuit this season. So those are a couple of guys that I wanted to give some additional shout outs to. But at the end of the day, I'm going with the Black Mamba, Rashad Eugene, most improved player of the 2021 season. Moving on. Now we're going to go to women's fighting most improved players. Now we're going to show some respect to the ladies. And then this is another one that I was pretty confident about. We're going with none other than Team Revolution's Jimena Janeiro. Please forgive me if I mispronounced that name at all, but I'm fairly certain that's it. So Jimena has came out and had an absolute breakout season. This was her first full season as an adult. From what I understand, I did some digging on social media, found out she was fighting as a junior in 2019. Obviously, we didn't have much of a 2020 season, so really 2021 would have been kind of her official rookie campaign. And then winning double grands at two different events, right? Winning the women's open weight and her women's fighting grand championship at the American Internationals, doing the same thing at the Pan American Internationals. If you win double overall grand championships for the division and the open weight twice in 1 year, you deserve some kind of an award, right? So shout out to Jimena to being able to secure those titles. Also having some great team fights alongside Alexa Fleshman, who's also been a great up-and-coming female fighter for Team Revolution. So big shout out to Team Revolution, powered by Century Martial Arts as well. But definitely a huge shout out to Jimena Janeiro for, in my opinion, being the most improved women's fighter for the 2021 season. Now we're going to roll right along to the women's forms and weapons most improved players, because this is another one that it's like, man, I couldn't pick, right? So I'm going to go ahead and show you those names. We've got another Team Revolution competitor in Kaelyn Kowalski, as well as a member of Team AKA and Sara Campbell. And these two ladies made huge improvements to their game this year. Kaelyn was able to turn it into some big wins. She made stage at the U.S. Open with her traditional bow routine and then wound up winning the women's weapons overall grand championship at the Pan American Internationals just a few short weeks ago. And then Sara Campbell, although she sometimes didn't get the scores from the judges that maybe she should have at times, she took a huge leap in her game this year. She's got one of the most difficult bow forms in that women's division. She does some insane tricks in her routine, two spins, catching behind the back, all types of crazy difficulties, spinning, catching behind the head, throwing the bow from around the back, catching it blind. So I got to give a shout out to Sara Campbell as well. And those two ladies really had some great battles over the course of the season. And so from watching their performances, I got to go with Kaelyn Kowalski and Sara Campbell. They both had big jumps this year and are certainly deserving of being the most improved players for the women's forms and weapons categories. Now I am seeing some more comments come in, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it up a little bit, see what everybody's saying. What do we got? So we got a lot of big shout-outs to Rashad Eugene, absolutely most improved men's competitor. We got to give Rashad his flowers for sure. Let's see, Point Fighter Live, power baby, love seeing that fire emoji down there. Philip Brumet appreciates the shout-out. And then also we're seeing some love for Kaelyn Kowalski. Absolutely, guys. And that's what this episode is all about. It's all about shouting out some of these competitors, using this platform to talk about some of the best in sport karate right now. And I don't think we're even halfway done yet. We're just rolling on along, and I'm giving out awards left and right tonight. And shout out to Barbara Campbell, Sara Campbell's mom. She's in the chat, so let's give a round of applause to her for Sara taking home an award tonight alongside Kaelyn Kowalski. Yeah, those two girls have been incredible. So now we're going to roll right along once again. Let's see, what do we got next? Okay, so that does it for the most improved players. Now we're going to go to the Rookie of the Year. Okay, we've got Rookies of the Year spread out between fighting and men's and women's and forms and weapons and all that. And so for the men's fighting Rookie of the Year, this one, let's try something fun. Go ahead and comment down below who you think it's going to be before I say it. Before I announce the men's fighting Rookie of the Year, drop it in the comments. Who do you think it's going to be? Let's see if anybody can guess it. I'm going to keep an eye on these comments for a minute. Men's fighting Rookie of the Year. Now, Rookie of the Year is defined as someone who came up and did their first full season in the adult division. They might have fought adult before, right? But this is their first full season in the men's division, right? So we're really looking at 18, 19-year-olds that are coming out for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic. And I see a whole lot of people agreeing with me on exactly who the Rookie of the Year is, and that is none other than Tyson Wray. Tyson Wray, at times when I was watching him fight this year, he looked like somebody that's been in the adult division for half a decade. His movement is incredible. His timing is incredible. His spacing is very good. He had close fights against some of the top competitors. I remember watching him fight Bailey Murphy in a grand championship, and Tyson really fought Bailey well. Tyson was in that fight for the majority of the match, and Bailey just kind of pulled away at the very end, as Bailey Murphy does, right? So, yeah, Tyson Wray of Team Next Level, that kid is insane, right? It's been really special to watch him in his rookie campaign. So absolutely Tyson Wray is deserving of the Rookie of the Year, again, by the Jackson Rudolph podcast. This is just me having fun, shouting out some people. This is not any official award, but most definitely shout out to Tyson Wray. You earned it, my man. And now we're going to go to the men's forms and weapons Rookie of the Year. Now, obviously, this was Mason Stowell's rookie year, and Mason Stowell was the MVP. So you could very easily say, well, if he's the MVP, then of course Mason Stowell has to be the Rookie of the Year, right? However, I mentioned that in that MVP race, there were some other competitors who were really close. So I used this as an opportunity to give another shout out to another competitor, right? So you can absolutely say that Mason Stowell was the Rookie of the Year. He was the MVP, right? However, I got to give a shout out to my man, one of the greatest sync partners of all time, my boy, Jake Presley, right? Jake Presley, he's earned it. He came up into that men's division, had some electric traditional weapons routines, and Jake's done a great job of making traditional weapons entertaining. When Jake goes out and he does that traditional weapons form, he puts on a show, and that's something that not many competitors are able to do effectively, and Jake does it very, very well. We saw Jake in the junior division consistently when he maybe came up a little bit short or had a drop in the CMX division. It didn't matter because he would go on stage with the traditional bow form and win anyway. So it's like Jake had multiple paths by which he could win the overall grand championship in the juniors. And now in the adults, we saw him get a berth on stage at the U.S. Open in that men's weapons final. And he was doing traditional weapons, right? So he was actually able to carry that traditional weapons all the way into a U.S. Open stage appearance, which was an awesome division. It was an honor for me to share the ring with guys like Jake and Alex Mancias, Connor Chastain, and the like. So that was a really cool event to be a part of. It was good for me to be back in the ring, and I was very blessed to be able to get a win there. But Jake Presley, I've known Jake for a long time. He's in ways been a little bit of a protege of mine. I've always kind of given him guidance whenever I can over the course of his career. There's, the great stories that Jake and I have shared together about when I had won back-to-back Warrior Cups, and then Jake comes up against me in the Warrior Cup round, and Jake got the nod on a 4-3 split that night, and then Jake and I kind of together carried the Warrior Cup off stage, really because at the time Jake was like 11 or 12 years old and couldn't pick it up by himself. And if you scroll far enough through sportmartialarts.com, you can probably find some of those really cool pictures of Jake and I that night. And then anybody that's followed my career knows that Jake has been my trusty sync partner for the last 5 seasons, going undefeated at the U.S. Open and undefeated against weapons forms when we've hit our routine, right? That's something that it's not possible with just one guy. Jake helped me make that record possible. We've set U.S. Open records, Jake and I together, and I just can't give Jake Presley enough respect. So that is why Men's Forms and Weapons Rookie of the Year, Jake Presley, I'm giving you a shout out, my brother. Congratulations. And I see a bunch of comments coming in, so we're going to switch back to it. Let's see what we got. Yeah, we got a lot of people shouting out Tyson Ray. Absolutely. We also see some mentioning of Alex Mancias down in the comments too. Yes, Alex Mancias was a great rookie, but I don't see Alex as a rookie anymore, right? Like when he first got on the team, we were calling him Rook because, you know, he was brand new to Team Paul Mitchell, so we called him Rook, and he was still a junior then. So I know technically he is a rookie as an adult, but yes, absolutely. Alex Mancias had a great season. And then D-Stacks, I was unsure if this was actually his first season as an adult. I know it's kind of his first season out there. But regardless, I mean, that's why we got him the Most Improved Player award anyway. So I did try to keep it equitable. I wasn't trying to have somebody go home with every single award too. So again, this is not any official award. This is just me talking about some guys that earn it. So absolutely all these names that you guys are throwing out there deserve it. I see Gabrielle Dunn jumping in the comments. Now, I've been telling you guys, obviously Gabrielle's my fiance, I've been telling you guys how I tried to avoid bias as much as possible. You could make a case for Gabrielle in terms of that Women's Forms and Weapons Most Improved Player as well, but it simply would not be fair for me to give my fiance an award, so I'm not going to do that. So Gabrielle, I love you, but I didn't consider you for any of this because I try to be as unbiased as I can on my podcast. I'm not just going to shout out my fiance and my teammates, which is exactly why we're going to go ahead and roll on into the next category. We've got Women's Fighting Rookie of the Year. Now, this is one where the choice seemed pretty clear to me. She was the most improved fighter. To my knowledge, this was her first full season in the women's division on the NASCA circuit. We're going back to Jimena Janeiro. Gave her a shout-out for the most improved female fighter. Shout-out to Team Revolution. Shout-out to Conell Loveless. She gets the Rookie of the Year award for the same reason that she received the Most Improved Player award. And then, of course, keeping in line with that, we got to go with Haley Glass for the Forms and Weapons side of things. She was the MVP on the women's side. She was kind of the most successful by a pretty significant margin of the new adult women in that division. So Haley Glass, Rookie of the Year, that's the obvious choice there as well. And again, shout out to all those other great female competitors that we've been mentioning throughout the show. But Jimena Janeiro and Haley Glass as the Rookies of the Year for the women's side, to me, that makes the most sense, and we've already talked about why. So now we're going to move on to another one of these special awards, another one that isn't just like an MVP or something like that. We're getting specific here, and now we're going to go to the Comeback Player of the Year. And I was sitting trying to think of maybe some competitors that have come back from injury or just had major life setbacks that are public knowledge, of course, and have been able to, kind of come back from that and be really successful. And honestly, I didn't really find very many names of people that I thought would be competing for this title. But there was one person who I thought had a really good season after coming back. And so I feel like the person most deserving of Comeback Player of the Year is none other than Team Next Level's James Pore. So we saw James go through a long period of inactivity. There were even some tournaments where he wasn't fighting prior to the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. He was getting more involved with Juventex, and we saw him doing some of the Juventex stuff at the events, but not fighting as much. And we have seen James Pore be kind of reinvigorated here in late 2021, going and fighting at the Pan American Internationals and winning the lightweight overall grand championship there. Getting into that final with Tyson Ray, who was the Rookie of the Year, right? And then we saw James Pore on the Virtual Fight Tour. Shout out to Jesse Ray and the Virtual Fight Tour for securing a win against the great Robbie Lavoie in an excellent matchup. That could have gone either way for sure. So huge props and respect to Robbie Lavoie for a great fight there. But at the end of the day, James Pore was the guy that got his hand raised. And so I'm going to go Comeback Player of the Year, James Pore. And really, that was just me recognizing, the season that James Pore had, especially here in the last few events and in his appearance on Virtual Fight Tour, and me wanting to give him a shout out. If you guys know of any competitors that came back from substantial injury or any type of really difficult circumstance that they're coming back from, definitely go ahead and give them a shout out down in the comments. But this was really just me wanting to give a shout out to James Pore. So James, Comeback Player of the Year. You earned it, my man. Now we're going to move on. Now, I know that I probably have some of my friends across the pond over in Europe that are yelling at me about, how come this was the MVP, whatever. What about Elijah? Right? And I recognize that Elijah very well could be the best point fighter on the planet right now. It seems that he's definitely the best lightweight on the planet right now with the guys that he's been able to get wins against and securing the WACO World Championship. But I didn't see him fight enough. So I added another award because it's my show and I can do whatever I want to, right? So the other award that I added, we got the International Fighter of the Year. So this is saying, okay, NASCA stuff, we're always looking at North America, so let's not worry so much about North America, the United States, Canada, Mexico, right? Let's focus on Central South America and over across the pond out in Europe because those are the other big hubs of sport karate. Who deserves recognition from those countries? Elijah Everill, right? Elijah is most definitely the best point fighter in the world right now outside of the United States, right? And we've seen him prove that time and time again. Irish Open openweight champion, the most coveted title in the sport. Maybe the fastest blitz in the world. The way that he blitzes is incredible. His length is incredible. His stance is so low that it makes him so hard to read as a fighter. And he's completely calm regardless of the situation. He stays cool. And if he gets a lead on you, it's very, very hard to come back from it. If you give up 3 points to Elijah, it's almost impossible to make that fight close again because he's either going to extend that lead or he's going to hold that lead for the entirety of the round, right? So shout out to Elijah Everill taking home the International Fighter of the Year award. And then if we have an International Fighter of the Year, of course, that means we have to have an International Forms and Weapons Competitor of the Year, which I'm going to go with none other than Arturo Armendariz for his win at the WACO World Championships, securing perfect 10s across the board with his bow routine. And Arturo's somebody that I'm really, really fond of, right? So for a little bit of context, I think the year was 2014 when Eric Farrow brought me over to Guatemala and I started teaching some seminars there. I remember the first year there, I was teaching alongside Ross Levine, who did a point fighting seminar. Grandmaster Manny Reyes, the promoter of the Pan American Internationals, was doing a Kempo seminar, and I was there doing the bow seminar. And that's the first time that I got a chance to work with this guy, Arturo Armendariz. His talent was incredible. And really, through a lot of the teaching that he's done in Guatemala, he's part of the reason that we see so many great weapons competitors, young weapons competitors coming out of Guatemala right now, is because Arturo kind of took that torch and was able to share his skills and his knowledge that I was fortunate to be able to give him some of, with his country and be able to really develop some great athletes there. And then, of course, going to the WACO World Championships in Italy and defeating some great American competitors, right? In that particular weapons division that Arturo wound up winning, he beat Rashad Eugene, who is the most improved player that I awarded this, that award to, right? So Arturo Armendariz, he's absolutely incredible. I've competed against him once that I can remember. I think he may have gone to the Pan American International several years ago, but I don't remember that division at all. But I do remember one year in Ireland, he and I went at it with each other. And it's not very often that I feel like I got to step up my single bow tricks because if there's another single bow guy that's got some stuff that I need to adjust for, Arturo made me make adjustments, right? And that's a big compliment coming from me to say that, Arturo's level of difficulty made me step it up a notch. So Arturo, big shout out to you. Congratulations on the WACO World Championship. And that is why you are the International Forms and Weapons Competitor of the Year. Moving on, we're going to go to another special award. But first, I see some comments coming in, so I'm going to switch it up, take a look at these comments. Let's see what we got here. We got some people showing some love to Gabrielle. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Drew Derek Bisbee saying Alexa Fleshman for comeback player. Drew, if you want to provide some extra context to that, I would love that. Tell a little bit more of that story if she's coming back from an injury, anything like that. Absolutely, give those stories. We want to hear that. Jeannie Jones saying James is such a nice guy. Absolutely, James is great. Thank you guys for jumping in the comments and shouting out. And by the way, if you guys got questions, if you guys got other people you think should be named in some of these lists, go ahead, drop that in the comments down below. This is an open discussion. That's why we're doing it live. But for now, we're going to roll on to our next division. I say division, right? Sport karate guy. Now we're going to move on to coaches of the year. And I did plural here because there were two that I wanted to, that I really thought had different reasons that they should get it. One because of dominance and another because of how much improvement the team has made over the course of the 2021 season. And then there's so many other coaches right now who are legends. Now, I will go ahead and admit my bias here first. I forbid myself from naming any of the Paul Mitchell coaches, right? Because I'm a Paul Mitchell guy, so it would just be weird if I was like, oh, yeah, all my coaches are the best, right? I love all my coaches. The Paul Mitchell executive team, in my opinion, is the best executive team because we're also one of the only teams that has an executive branch, but that's beside the point. So I love my Paul Mitchell coaches, but for the purposes of this podcast, in the interest of staying fair and not being biased, I went elsewhere. And so the first two names I'm going to mention, the people that I'm going to put on the banner are Coaches of the Year, Richard Plowden, Conell Loveless, right? Richard Plowden, that one's self-explanatory. He is the father and trainer of Avery and Morgan Plowden. Arguably the best heavyweight on the planet, arguably the best female point fighter on the planet, and their dad coaches them, right? So Richard Plowden, the poise that he has in the ring, one thing I love just sitting and watching him coach, because when he coaches, he has such a calmness to him that I feel like gets translated to his fighters, right? I feel like if any time Avery or Morgan finds himself in a bad situation, or anybody else that Richard coaches, whether it be Chris Gorham or whoever, if they just look over their shoulder and look back at Richard, it's almost like he is a sense of calm for them, right? And I've talked about it with Avery on the show just a couple of episodes ago too. So big shout out to Richard Plowden for his efforts with obviously his kids and the other fighters that he coaches. Really cool little side story here from the Diamond Nationals, because over the course of the last few years, I've gotten to know Avery and Morgan and the Plowden family a lot better. And so I was sitting stage side at Diamonds when Avery was going up on stage and Morgan on stage too to win their diamond rings. And what's so funny is that where Richard was sitting was across the stage from where I was. So I was sitting stage side lower, and he was obviously up in the coach's chair on the other side of the stage. And every time one of his kids was about to fight, he made eye contact with me, winked, and then sat down in the coach's chair, which made me feel like the coolest guy in the world, right? Like Richard Plowden just winked at me on stage, right? So I don't know if that turned into a good luck charm, because the first time that he did it, I think Avery won the diamond ring in that first round, or maybe it was the semifinal or whatever. But whichever fighter was on stage wound up winning. And so I think he just kept doing it because it was a good luck charm. But that was a pretty cool little side story from Diamonds. And then I got to give love to Conell Loveless, head coach of Team Revolution. And what he's done with Team Revolution, we've mentioned several Team Revolution names already. Kaelyn Kowalski, Alexa Fleshman, Jimena Janeiro, in the senior division, Edgar Cordova holding it down, right? What he's been able to do with Team Revolution, not to mention the fact that Team Revolution has Ariel Torres, who hasn't been on the NASCA circuit, went to the Olympics and won a bronze medal, right? So big shout out to Conell Loveless as well for his work with Team Revolution. And then I also want to shout out a few other coaches just because they absolutely deserve it. So I'm going to go through my notes here and make sure that I don't leave anybody out. I also want to give a big shout out to Team Velocity's Murphy Gonzalez, right? This is Team Velocity's 20-year anniversary this year. So big shout out for that. It's very difficult to keep a karate team going for 20 years. And then also the fact that since Richard Plowden was promoting the WKC World Championships because the United States was the host country this year, Murphy Gonzalez stepped up and he was the coach in the ring for a lot of those fighters for the team fights. He was there coaching Avery on his way to a world championship. So big shout out to Murphy Gonzalez for holding it down in that regard, as well as for Team Velocity. And then there's another two where it's just because of the success of their teams, I got to mention them. Joe Greenhall, right? Joe Greenhall, one of my absolute favorite people in sport karate. The guy's got a heart of gold. Team Straight Up was dominant this year. Obviously, they got Bailey. They got Brandon, who I considered one of the most improved. They got Romani Alicia. They got other guys too. So I think they picked up Josiah Noel as well, right? So they're deepening their roster. And Joe Greenhall is just one of the all-time greats when it comes to coaching. So huge shout out to Joe Greenhall, truly one of the best to ever do it. And then also a shout out to Jesse Wray, coach of Team Next Level, for a lot of those young guys that are coming up and finding a whole lot of success, winning overall grand championships, fighting in the finals. And an additional shout out to Jesse Wray. This goes beyond coaching, but for bringing us the virtual fight tour. That has been an extremely exciting aspect of sport karate competition, allowing us to get some head-to-head pay-per-view matchups. 3 rounds, 1-point body kicks, which I know a lot of people like to see, even though it might be a little bit controversial. You get the 1-point body kicks in Virtual Fight Tour. But all jokes aside, Virtual Fight Tour has been a great platform for sport karate for over a year at this point. They celebrated their 1-year anniversary, I think, a few months ago. So huge shout out to Jesse Ray. He's also given love to the forms and weapons side of things with one rendition of the virtual form store. I've been blessed to be able to commentate, which is one of my other passions. I commentated the virtual forms tour and then some VFT events as well on the fighting side of things. So big shout out to Jesse Ray, not only for his coaching, but also for his efforts with the virtual fight tour. And there's a ton of other coaches that are really great coaches in sport karate that I could list. But really, I decided to highlight the Detroit guys tonight with Richard Plowden and Conell Loveless. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on. Now, I mentioned coaches of the year. We're now going to move on to executive of the year. And here's the delineation that I made here. So when I say executive of the year, yes, that's going to refer to a coach of a team, right? But there's a difference between the coaching role and the executive role, right? The coaching role is for a point fighter sitting next to the ring and being that presence for that fighter. Strategy changes, the support that fighter needs when they're in the ring. And then, of course, the training leading up to that to say, hey, if you get this matchup, here's what we need to do. Hey, this technique's not working for you right now. Let's switch it up to this, right? So that's what I mean by coaching. On the forms and weapons side, it's whatever coach is helping that competitor through private lessons and helping that competitor get better and better to up their game before they step in the ring. When I talk about an executive, I'm talking about a coach of a team, but I'm talking about the side of that team coaching that involves all the moves being made, new player acquisitions, free agents, new signings, right? Constructing a well-balanced team. And in my opinion, the guy who's done that the best in recent years is none other than Jarrett Leiker. Top 10 Team USA might be the most well-rounded team in all of sport karate right now. At this very moment, Top 10 Team USA has a great roster from top to bottom. They've got Mason Stowell, who I already named as the MVP, right? They've got Mason Bumbo, who's been a dominant junior competitor, both in terms of weapons and in his fighting. And then they have assembled for Jarrett, who has a reputation as a traditional forms guy. He did CMX weapons as well, but most people know Jarrett as a forms and weapons guy. The team that he's been able to construct on the point fighting side of things, they won team fights at the U.S. Open. Enrique Latona, Tyreek Saint, Troy Benz. They've also got, they got a full roster of great competitors. When we get to the seniors, we're going to talk about Abdul Qadir, right? I mean, the talent that they've been able to assemble with Top 10 Team USA, and a lot of it being talent that they have brought up themselves, right? Like Mason Stowell is somebody that has trained under Jarrett forever. So in that respect, the physical coaching part of it that I was talking about plays a role too, specifically with regards to Mason. But when you look at the moves that have been made and the way that he's been able to assemble the team and the current product that Top 10 Team USA is right now, you got to tip your cap to Jarrett Leiker for the job that he's been able to do in constructing that team. And I know that's a team effort as well. So obviously his parents, Bob and Jill Leiker, have done an incredible job as well. I'm sure that Becca, his wife, has also played a big role in those acquisitions. But I know that a lot of times Jarrett kind of becomes the public face of the team in a way. Maybe that's just my perception. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But still, I wanted to give that shout out to Jarrett Leiker for his moves as an executive over the last couple of years. And so that's why I named him the executive of the year for this year. Cool. So now I see some more comments. So I'm going to jump into those. Let's see what we got here. We got Jeannie Jones giving us some comments. Great coaches. Absolutely. Cool. Shout out to VFT. Shout out to Top 10 Team USA. Awesome. So, all right. So now we're going to switch it up. We're going to keep moving on down. I just mentioned when we get to the seniors. Now, this is another one where I cheated, right? I'm going to name two senior men's senior fighting MVPs because there's two guys that really deserve it. Yoskar Gamez of Team Legend and Abdul Qadir of Team Top 10 USA. These guys have both been incredible. Java going overseas and winning the Waco World Championship. That's a huge deal. Also getting some big wins in Virtual Fight Tour. I remember watching a Virtual Fight Tour once where Java actually did like a Karate Kid kick and scored with it towards the end of that fight against a great opponent that he was able to do that in. So Java's been incredibly impressive. And then Yoskar with his consistent dominance of that senior division. And what really is a travesty is that I don't think we've gotten a matchup between the two of them yet. This whole season, I don't think that we ever got to see Yoskar and Java go at it. If we did and I somehow missed it, please drop that link in the comments below. Let me know if it happened. but I don't recall that ever happening, which is truly a travesty because that would be fireworks. Now, Jesse Ray, if you're listening, I know that Yoskar has fought Virtual Fight Tour. I know that Java's fought Virtual Fight Tour. Maybe we can get that going. I mean, that's main event material right there in the senior division. But yeah, Yoskar, Battle of Atlanta, pretty sure U.S. Open as well. Won WKC. I watched him in person, went on stage at Diamonds. So Yoskar has been dominant here stateside. And then, of course, Java being able to go overseas, do it as well. If I'm not mistaken, I'd be willing to bet that Java won American Internationals as well, with that kind of being a home tournament in ways for Top 10 Team USA. So I'm sure he was there. But nonetheless, those two guys, Yoskar and Java, absolutely deserve MVP honors in men's senior fighting. Now we're going to switch it up to the women's fighting MVP, where you get somebody that actually wound up winning an overall grand championship at the Battle of Atlanta, beating some 18-29 opponents. We've got none other than team legends, Mouse Millner. So shout out to Mouse Millner for securing the senior women's fighting MVP. I haven't been able to watch her fight much this year, but in those times that I did get to watch her fight, like at Battle of Atlanta, she was very impressive and had some great wins. And, when you get some impressive wins like that coming out of the senior division, it's a no-brainer. Senior women's fighting MVP, we're going Mouse Millner. Rolling right along, giving some more love to the senior competitors. By the way, senior competitors, you guys deserve this love, right? So go ahead, drop some likes, drop some hearts for those senior competitors. They are literally the most experienced competitors in the world of sport karate, and they're going to every tournament. They don't get put on stage often enough. There should be a senior grand championship of some sort on stage in every single NASCA event. I firmly believe that. Because those guys put on a show. Those guys and girls, they put on a great show. Whether it's fighting, forms, and weapons, doesn't matter. So huge shout out to the senior division because they deserve more exposure for everything that they've done to the sport. I mean, all these guys and girls that are in that senior division have committed a significant portion of their lives to sport karate, and they deserve to be shown more respect for that commitment that they've had to this sport. Because I've said on the podcast many times, if you do sport karate for a long time, we ain't in it for the money. We ain't in it for the fame. There's none of that in this sport. We're in it because we love what we do, right? And for those senior competitors to have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years and to keep coming back and to keep doing well and winning titles, that's something that absolutely deserves some respect. So big shout out to all senior competitors, 30 years and over. Now we're going to move on to the senior men's forms and weapons MVPs, plural, because again, I cheated. I couldn't pick one. I'm sorry. I can't help it. But we're going with Samuel Diaz III and Edgar Cordova. These two guys have been absolutely awesome in that men's senior division. Samuel Diaz being able to also come down to the 18-29 and win that difficult traditional bladed weapons category. He was on stage at Diamonds in that men's weapons final 18+ against Jake Presley. And Jake Presley's bow form against Sam Diaz's comma form. Sam Diaz was also on stage at Diamonds in the 30+ diamond ring round, representing the men's side, where he competed against Becca Ross Leiker, who was representing the women's side. So Sam has had an incredible season. And then Edgar Cordova in his flying comma form. That form is electric. Went out and got a win at the Pan American Internationals. He also went down to the 18-29 division at the WKC World Championships and got a win there. And big shout out to Andrew Campbell for giving me that plug on Edgar winning at the WKCs for the 18+ division. I did not realize that he won 18+ there. That's really impressive to be able to move down into that 18-29 group and still get wins. So Andrew, shout out to you for that. And huge shout out to Samuel Diaz and Edgar Cordova for winning the senior men's forms and weapons MVPs. This was another division where there's a lot of really great competitors in it. So I'm going to go ahead and go through my notes here and make sure I say everybody that I wanted to. Let's see. So we've also got Drew Derek Bisbee. Big shout out to him. We've also got, let's see. Oh, I lost it on my page. I'm just going to go off memory. We got Drew Derek Bisbee, Ray Kellison, early in the season, able to get some big grand championship wins. He was on stage at Battle of Atlanta competing against Mason Stowell in that overall division. So huge shout out to Ray Kellison, a.k.a. Master Roshi. If you know that reference, I got a bunch of respect for you. Ray Kellison of Team Revolution. I feel like there's somebody else that's on the tip of my tongue Terry Creamer as well. Terry Creamer's been around the sport for a long time, so big shout out to him, getting up on stage still and going out there and running some awesome forms. Andrew Caelyn being able to come back as well recently, since he was kind of stuck up in Canada with a lot of our Canadian friends for a little while with the COVID restrictions. And then Eric Tremblay, one of the newer additions to Team Competitive Edge. He was finally able to make it to Diamonds as well. And I could spend all day giving shout-outs to a lot of these great senior competitors. One big takeaway here, listen to how deep that division is. That division is insanely deep. 30-plus men's forms and weapons is a crazy deep division. That is a spectator-friendly division. If you're at a tournament, if you're at the AK Warrior Cup, go watch the senior division. It's a good division. Go watch those guys go at it. So all kinds of respect to the senior men's forms and weapons division and your MVPs, Samuel Diaz III and Edgar Cordova. I'm seeing a lot of comments come in, so I'm going to dive in there and check them out. What do we got? Let's see. Yoskar beat Java in VFT. Did that fight happen on VFT? Am I crazy? Did I somehow forget that fight happened? Maybe it did. Okay. Angel, shout out. Now that you say that, I'm trying to rethink through it. Maybe we did get that fight and Yoskar got the win. Regardless, make it happen again. Run it back. That's a great fight. If that fight did happen, I had to imagine it was close. So, Angel, thank you for jumping in and giving a shout-out for that there. I am starting to remember that now. I'm just going to pretend that maybe that was in 2020, so it's not too embarrassing that I forgot it for 2021. But, yes, Angel, thank you for that shout-out. And, of course, shout-out to Yoskar for getting that win. We also get a shout-out for Jeremy Roquet as the black horse of that division. Absolutely. Whenever he suits up and puts on the pads, he's been very effective as well. I think he's suited up at a lot of regional tournaments, gotten wins. Hakeem Walker has also had some great tournaments this year, so he deserves a mention as well. There's a ton of great senior men's fighters as well. Let's see. We see Angel Diaz, brother of Sam Diaz, saying he was unstoppable. # Vino, like fine wine, right? Ages like fine wine. Angel Diaz says Edgar Cordova was amazing. Absolutely, he was. And I love seeing him bring back the flying commas, right? I think that the last great flying comma form that I saw was like Ryan Redfoot back in the mid-2000s. Shout out to anybody who recognizes the Ryan Redfoot flying comma form reference. But I think that Ryan Redfoot probably had the best flying comma form. Up until now, we get Edgar Cordova, who's going up there in the senior division and bringing back the flying commas. Love, love, love to see that as well. As a kid, I loved flying commas. Like, I had this, like, secret fantasy one day that, like, I was going to do flying commas. And then, obviously, I picked up a bow, and that never happened. But, yeah, I love to see Edgar Cordova coming out with the flying commas. And then Jeannie Jones saying that she thinks it might become a deeper division as well. That'd be awesome. I want to see some new faces come into that senior division, make it even deeper, right? Because, really, that's the best thing about sport karate. When you get a really, really deep division with all kinds of talent, those always make for the most exciting events, right? Especially in forms and weapons. And then in point fighting, if you watch those brackets sometimes, man, you get some great fighters that just don't quite break it through and make it on stage. But there's some great fighting that happens right up until you get to those stage fights with the semifinals and the overall grand championships. But I digress. Big shout out to those senior competitors. Let's switch back over to the banner. And we also have Senior Women's Forms and Weapons MVP. And this one is particularly impressive because in this one, I thought that one performance was enough. Becca Ross, right? All-time great women's competitor, part of the lineage that I happen to come from. So my lineage goes all the way back to Mike Bernardo, who trained Casey Marks, who trained Lauren Carney. Lauren Carney showed me a lot of the ropes of competition and trained me early on in my bow career. Lauren was also responsible for training Becca Ross at one point as well. So Becca and I kind of have that relation in our training lineage. And Becca showed up at Diamond Nationals and wound up winning the whole thing. Went and won the senior diamond ring, beating the men's senior grand championship winner with her bow routine, and became the first person in history to win a junior diamond ring title, adult diamond ring title, and a senior diamond ring title. Nobody's ever done that. Becca Ross is the only one. And that historically significant event alone is enough to make you the MVP. I also want to give a shout out to Melanie Strauss, who I believe won a couple of grand championships a couple of times this year at the Battle of Atlanta and then at the Pan American Internationals. Also, shout out to my future mother-in-law, Roxanne Doyen, for winning the grand championship for the senior forms and weapons for the women at U.S. Open. That was a big accomplishment. But really, when Becca showed up at Diamonds and took over, that was extremely impressive. So big shout out to Becca Ross Leiker for claiming that diamond ring and becoming the senior women's forms and weapons MVP. Now we're going to move on to the juniors. We've been talking about the adults. We've been talking about the seniors. And we've got a bunch of parents of junior competitors in the chat right now who are probably thinking, where are the juniors at? Where are the juniors at, right? So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to flip through my notes, and we're going to get to those juniors right now. We're going to kick things off with the junior boys MVP. Now, I'm going to admit here that I did not separate this out into forms and weapons and fighting because truly I did not watch enough senior fighting this year. I want to watch, junior fighting this year. I want to watch junior fighting more often. I just haven't gotten a chance to do it. And I felt since I wasn't as studied up on it as I would want to be to truly name an MVP, then I probably shouldn't even try. If you want to see some people that the Black Belt Magazine rankings committee have recognized as some of the best junior point fighters right now, you can head on over to the Black Belt Magazine or blackbeltmag.com page, click on Sport Karate, and then click on rankings. You can scroll down and find the point fighting division where they've recognized several competitors that aren't ranked in any particular order, but they've recognized some of the best junior 14 to 17-year-old point fighters right now. So I definitely recommend that resource. But personally, I haven't watched enough to truly give them an MVP. And so in fairness, I have watched a lot of junior forms and weapons because I got a lot of students in that category. So junior boys, forms and weapons MVP. And I'm going to be honest, I lost sleep over this one. This one's tough. There's so many great kids in that division. I mean, it is so difficult to say this person or that person is the MVP. But I'm going to go with the guy in forms and weapons who I feel like is the most well-rounded right now and has the resume to prove it. We got team competitive edges, Dawson Holt. Dawson Holt very nearly set a record this year at the U.S. Open. He won the Traditional Weapons ISKA World Championship. He won the CMX Forms ISKA World Championship. He won the Team Demo ISKA World Championship. And he very narrowly, I had to make sure I say that right, lost the CMX Weapons ISKA World Championship by 100th of a point. Dawson Holt was 100th of a point from being the first competitor in history to win 4 ISKA US Open titles in one evening. Instead, he ties the record by winning 3 in one evening. Trying to think of who all has done that. I've done it with Sync, Traditional Weapons, CMX Weapons. Kaelyn DeShell has done it with CMX Forms, CMX Weapons, Traditional Weapons. Who else has done it? I feel like there's somebody else who's done it, but I'm forgetting. I think Danny Etkin has done it. Danny Etkin has done it with CMX Forms, CMX Weapons, and Synchronized. And if you guys can think of anybody else who's won 3 ISKA titles in one night, go ahead and drop those down in the comments below. Mackenzie Emery might have done it when she was doing Sync with Tyler Weaver, or maybe even when she was doing Demo with 100%. So there's options there for people that might have done it. But it's very, very rare that happens. Dawson Holt was able to pull off 3 ISKA US Open wins in one evening. He was also able to stay consistent in other tournaments as well. He won the Diamond Ring in the weapons division with his traditional sword form. So Dawson has been really, really impressive all season. He was on stage for 2 events at the Pan American Internationals. So Dawson, to me, has been extremely impressive and very well-rounded. So that's why I give the junior boys MVP to Dawson Holt. Now, I got to mention the other guys that made me lose sleep about this. The guy that won that ISKA US Open weapons division was Mason Bumba, right? And if I had included point fighting in this, maybe that's what pushes Mason Bumba over the edge because I watched him win point fighting on stage at the Diamond Nationals as a junior, right? Juniors don't get showcased on stage enough, so it's awesome when they do get to go on stage and do their point fighting on stage because that doesn't happen frequently enough. Mason did it, and under the bright lights, he was able to get the win. And so Mason being well-rounded from his bow form to his open form to his point fighting is extremely impressive. And then, of course, Mason won that U.S. Open title, which is a huge deal. I'd say that 14 to 17 weapons ISKA U.S. Open title is probably one of the most difficult divisions to win in the sport, and Mason Bumba pulled that off. So big shout-out to Mason Bumba. I also have to give a shout-out, and I've said this on the podcast before, to somebody who I feel might be the most underrated competitor in sport karate right now, and maybe one of the most underrated in history, and that's Ben Jones. Ben Jones has hit some forms that, I'll just say it, should have been wins this year that were not wins. And I'm not talking about any specific division that I've already referenced. I'm talking about other random times, right? And I'll admit my bias. Ben is a student of mine. But Ben Jones, I got to give him a shout out because he's amazing. That kid impresses me every single time that I work with him, every single time that I see him in the ring. And then I also want to give a shout out to Team AKA Zalif Saliz, right? He's done an excellent job this year, wound up winning a forms title at the Diamond Nationals. Made it out of that very deep 14-17 weapons division at the Battle of Atlanta and was running his very unique sword form on stage at Atlanta. And Zalif's been one of the faces of Team AKA in the last year. So big shout out to Zalif as well. He's definitely had a lot of value, added value to his team. And then, of course, we mentioned Philip Brumet is one of the most improved players in that division. Esteban Tremblay, when he's able to get out of Canada more often, I expect him to have a great year next year. So there's so many great competitors in that boys 14-17 division. It's insane. So because of the well-roundedness within forms and weapons, I went with Dawson. Because of the historical significance of his U.S. Open, I went with Dawson. But there's so many great kids in that division that it really is hard to pick amongst them. I see a bunch of comments coming in, so I'm going to go take a look at these right now. Let's see what we got. All right. Let's see. So we got Drew Derek Bisbee chiming in that Melanie won both Grands at Battle of Atlanta and U.S. Open and Pan Ams. I know that Roxanne Doyen won one of the senior Grands at Pan Ams as well. He also says Becca is a legend. Absolutely, she is. And then we see a lot of comments for Dawson Holt. Dawson, you absolutely deserve it, my man. Dawson getting his flowers in the comments section. Let's see. Scrolling through here. Jeannie Jones, Mason's a formidable opponent. Absolutely, he is. We get a shout out for Ben Jones from several guys down here. You guys are commenting a lot. I love to see it. Keep these comments coming, guys. Love getting that engagement. Love it, love it, love it. All right. So everybody's basically agreeing there's a ton of talent in that division. It's really, really hard to pick. So thank you guys for chiming in the comments, showing love to all those great competitors because they all kill it. Big shout out to all those guys. Now we're going to move on to the junior girls MVP. There's a lot of great competitors in this division as well. But there is one competitor who has truly been unstoppable, and I don't even have to hesitate on this one. Maddie Kennaway of Team KTOC with the Adidas sponsorship. I mean, she has been an animal in that 14-17 girls division, not only winning the traditional forms runoff, but also winning the CMX forms runoff with her traditional form. She plays music with her traditional form to make it a musical form, and she has been absolutely dominant in that division. So huge shout out to Maddie Kennaway for all the success that she's had this year. I think she's won the overall Grand Championship in forms at virtually every single event that she has shown up to. So absolutely huge shout out to Maddie Kennaway for a truly dominant season. And then also a shout out to one of the best CMX competitors in that division, Annabeth Hedgepeth of Team Competitive Edge. She's been doing a great job in that division as well on the CMX side of things with the tricking. She's got a great nunchuck routine. But just because of the sheer numbers, Maddie Kennaway has come out with a lot of those wins. So you got to give respect to Maddie Kennaway for taking the Junior Girls MVP award for forms and weapons. So junior is referring to 14-17. Now we're going to jump down into the youth divisions and go to 13 and under, which is, we're going to start with the boys. This is another one, guys. I had to tie two of them because they were so close. We're going with Michael Molina and Dax Howland. These two guys are both showstoppers. Michael Molina stands out because of his sheer performance value. Anytime he's on the stage, you know that he's going to put on an absolute show. And anytime that Dax Howland is on stage, you know that you're going to watch the end of that form and not understand how he did 75% of the things that happen in that routine, right? So Michael's got the total package as a performer. Dax has all of the difficulty in the world. Like, it's not often that I find myself watching a form and me scratching my head like, how did he do that in a combo? Dax does that consistently in his forms. So those two guys, they're going to be dominant in the boys, the 14-17 boys, the men's division. We've got decades ahead of us where Michael Molina and Dax Howland are going to be going at it. And I didn't have a choice but to tie them, right? Michael gets the win at the Battle of Atlanta with his CMX bow form. Then he goes to Amerikick and gets the win there with his traditional bow form. Dax Howland has the huge win on stage at the U.S. Open. Then he goes to the Pan American Internationals, gets that win there. They were beating each other all along the way. Michael Molina and Dax Howland, like, Round of applause for you guys. You guys were incredible. And then I also want to give another shout out in that junior boys division to Judah Sagawa, who also won multiple overall grand championships this year for team freestyle, won the forms title at US Open for this age category. And Judah really had a breakout season. If we were going to go with most improved competitors for the 13 and under boys division, Judah would absolutely be in that conversation. Made stage at the Diamond Nationals with his sword form, where unfortunately suffered a drop, but his path to stage there, he hit some excellent forms. So team freestyle, Will Jackson, shout out to you guys. And Judah Sagawa had an excellent season as well. But I'm a bow guy. My MVPs are bow guys. We're going with Michael Molina and Dax Howland, but huge shout out to all that talent in that 13 and under age group. Now we're going to move on to another one that was really, really, really close because there's a ton of talent here. But when you look at the numbers and you look at who won the most overall grand championships, we got to go with our youth girls MVP. 13 under girls MVP is Isabella Nikolai of Team AKA. She's been incredible. She gets on stage all the time. She wins very consistently. She does it all. She does the CMX. She does the traditional. So Isabella absolutely deserves this honor. So big congratulations to Isabella Nikolai. But there's a ton of girls in that division who are right there with her, right? We got Cody Molina, who has an outstanding traditional bow routine as well as CMX bows. She can do commas too. I remember Cody Molina went and won the US Open. She was doing commas for her daytime divisions. An hour before the show, Cody Molina still didn't know what she was going to do on stage. She decided to do her extreme bow form and wound up winning the whole US Open with it. Also, huge shout out to Avery Presley of Team Competitive Edge. Avery is somebody that has been dealing with some injuries this season. But when she's healthy, she's absolutely one of the best in that world in that division, and she's had several great performances this year as well. So big shout out to Avery Presley. And then more on the traditional side of things, huge shout out to Team Infinity's Sofia Rodriguez Flores. She had a great season, winning some overall grand championships, getting some wins against some of those great CMX competitors like we've mentioned. She can do it in traditional form. She also does it in traditional weapons. So a huge shout out to Sofia Rodriguez Flores as well. So there's a ton of talent in that division. Alice Gross is another one who's got a lot of talent. There's a ton of talent in that 13 and under girls division, and it's going to be really exciting to watch them. I mentioned that over the years in the women's division for the older ladies, you know, we often get these 2 or 3 person rivalries that we see. But right now, that 13 under girls division is 4, 5, 6 competitors deep. And if we see that continue into their teenage years and into the adult division, the women's division is going to have a big upgrade coming for it when we get that much talent in there. The top of the women's division is really, really good. But when we get like that much depth and that many world-class competitors in that division, that's going to be really impressive. But don't get me wrong, there's a ton of depth in the women's division right now. There's even some names that we haven't gotten to mention in the show. Kylie Boyer, Noelle Jellison, Solange Olivier. I mean, there's a lot of great talent in that women's division right now as well. I'm just saying that when these little 13 and under girls right now get up in there, it is going to be some fireworks because all of them have a ton of talent. Once again, I see we're getting a whole bunch of comments, so I'm going to switch it over. We're going to see what people are saying here. You guys have commented so much, I can hardly catch up to them. No, that's a good thing, though. I love it. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. All right, let's see. You can make a case for each of them to get the win. Yeah, a lot of these, where I'm mentioning multiple people, you can absolutely make a case for everybody that I'm mentioning, no doubt. That's why I'm mentioning so many names, is that ultimately I got to try to pick somebody if we're going to do a show like this. But there's so many people that deserve these wins, it's not even funny. Getting a lot of shout-outs to some of our winners, absolutely. Philip Brumays is both of my boys right there, for sure. Ryan Schoaf, Judah's fun to watch. Absolutely, Judah's a showstopper. We got Dax Howland, an award winner tonight, coming in the comments. He says, thank you, sir. It's a huge honor. Michael's an incredible competitor. And that's one thing that impressed me about Dax, how humble he is. No matter what crazy stuff he can do, you'll never see Dax Howland with a big head. He's super humble, super down to earth, always doing things for his community. So, Dax, big shout out to you, not just being a good martial artist, but being a great dude. You're a good person too, my man. You deserve it. Let's see. Isabella's a beast, absolutely. For sure, we get a shout out for Pia, Sofia Rodriguez Flores from Carrie Garrett, for sure. All right, awesome. Looks like I'm caught up on comments. And so now we are going to move into our last 2 topics for the evening. We have the fight of the year and the division of the year, and that's going to close out the show. So this is another one where I want to hear what people had to guess. So fight of the year. If you had to pick your fight of the year, give me name versus name. What would be your fight of the year? Drop that down in the comments right now. I'm going to switch over to the comment section so that I can read some of this. So if you had to pick your fight of the year, what direction are you going? Because I have a feeling that a lot of people have the same fight in mind that I have in mind and that I have selected as my fight of the year. But I want to give you guys a chance to chime in. Let's hear what the people have to say. What is your 2021 fight of the year? Is it from Virtual Fight Tour? Is it the finals of a tournament? Is it from some division at a tournament? Is it maybe a time that Virtual Fight Tour and tournaments overlapped? Hint, hint, that's what mine is. So let me see. Give me those guesses. What do we see? Oh, Michael Brumet, he's got a good one. Michael Brumet says VFT last man standing at the Diamond Nationals. And since this show is starting to run, yeah, we get another one, Avery versus Bailey. You guys are reading my mind. I mean, come on, right? Fight of the year, no question. Bailey Murphy, Avery Plowden, Virtual Fight Tour, last man standing at the Diamond Nationals. This is the single thing that I give Jessie Ray the most credit for, bringing back the overall grand championship in which the heavyweight winner fights the lightweight winner. That is something that is unique to sport karate because we are a point sport. We're not a knockout sport. It's all about who's faster, who has the better technique, who shows that cleaner technique to the judges and sticks it, right? And because of that, we can have these matchups, these David versus Goliath, heavyweight versus lightweight matchups. And really, when you've got as many great lightweights as you do right now, the lightweights really aren't at much of a disadvantage, right? Those lightweights and heavyweights, you're going to see those wins go back and forth. So Jessie Ray with the Virtual Fight Tour last man standing, in which the lightweight overall grand winner fights the heavyweight overall grand winner, and they duke it out for a little bit of bonus money. That's also a good thing. We always want to see more money in sport karate, right? I absolutely love everything about that. So shout out to Virtual Fight Tour. And then, of course, I mean, how could you not love an overtime match between one of the best heavyweight point fighters, if not the best, in the United States, and one of the best, if not the best, lightweight point fighters in the United States? Bailey Murphy, Avery Plowden, they put on a show. That fight could have gone either way at the end of it. Bailey wound up taking the crown and getting that VFT title. But shout out to both guys because that match was absolutely incredible. If you haven't watched that match, make sure you go back, watch the live stream, sportmartialarts.com. It's on the Virtual Fight Tour page as well, with Jessie streaming it up close. So absolutely go check out the that last man standing fight. It was the very, very end of the show at Diamond Nationals. Bailey Murphy versus Avery Plowden. You guys get fight of the year. Now we're going to move on to the division of the year. This one was a really tight one because, man, there were so many great divisions that happened. I was really blessed to be a part of some great divisions at the U.S. Open. I had a ton of fun on stage in that men's weapons final at U.S. Open. But that's not where I'm going with this. I'm not going to pick a division that I was in because that's boring, right? Truly, the best division that I watched all year in forms and weapons came from the juniors. It's none other than the 14-17 boys weapons ISKA World Championship. I am so fortunate that I got to sit in the booth with Mike Chat and Kevin Cusick and do that live stream for blackbeltsportmartialarts.com and Jungo TV while that division was happening. And so backstory, right? Because there's a lot that happened at U.S. Open that the general population doesn't know about, right? So I'm gonna peel back the layers a little bit, right? So long story short, basically it came out about a week or so before the U.S. Open that there was this possibility that I was both going to compete and also try to be in the booth as a commentator for part of the nighttime finals. The plan was that I would sit in the booth and I would commentate for X amount of time until just before the team synchronized division, at which point I would leave the booth, go warm up, and get ready to go on stage with Jake for Team Sync, and then return at the end of the show for my own individual men's weapons division to defend that title. When we were going through the production meeting and we were looking at the way that all the divisions shook out, I looked at that 14-17 boys weapons division and I said, I want to do whatever it takes to get me in the booth for that division. I want to call 14-17 boys weapons. And it just so happened that it was in between the synchronized division and my individual final. And so what I did was I finished my first part of the commentating. I left, got ready with Jake for sync. We went out, did sync, got that win. That was awesome. As soon as I came off stage from sync, I sprinted backstage, back around to the production booth, got back in the booth in my uniform, put the headset on, and then watched that 14-17 weapons division. And I was about to go and compete for my own ISKA title literally within the hour. But I was like, I have to call this division. It means that much to me. And in that division, I'm going to read the list to make sure I say everybody. We have the eventual champion, Mason Bumba, top 10 Team USA. We have Dawson Holt, competitive edge. We have Ben Jones, competitive edge. We have Philip Brumet, Team Gypsy. And we have Riley Tracy of the American national team. Okay? Those boys put on one of the best divisions, not just in 2021. That was one of the best divisions I've ever watched. The quality of the weapons routines that those guys did. Riley Tracy had an unfortunate drop. Philip Brumet, combat form, excellent. Ben Jones, bow form, unbelievable. I could not believe some of the scores Ben got. I thought Ben should have gotten a little bit higher scores there. But I'm not taking anything away from the guys that scored above him. Those guys earned their scores too. Mason earned that win. Not questioning the win. I'm just saying I thought it could have been even closer than what it was, right? And it was down to 100th of a point between Dawson and Mason, right? So the closeness of that division was insane, and I think it maybe could have been even closer than it was, right? You guys following me there? So I'm not saying that it should have been a different win. No, not what I'm saying. Mason earned it. I'm saying that division was close, and it maybe should have been even closer than it was, right? And so Dawson goes out there, does his sword form. Mason goes out there, does his bow form, which, by the way, I talked about Dax's difficulty. Mason Bumba, his difficulty is outstanding too. Mason Bumba, his ability to combine bow tricks and tricking together is truly phenomenal. It's kind of become his calling card and what gets him so many wins. And so tip my cap to you, Mason Bumba, for getting that win and doing it your way. You've really kind of created your own style where you mix together the bow tricks and the tricking. And so all the credit in the world to Mason Bumba for getting that win. But literally, I lost my voice commentating that division. Kevin Cusick and Mike Chat literally had to put hands on me to calm me down because I was getting so hyped calling that division. It was like every trick landed, added more suspense. Every single form that was finished added more drama to that division. And then there was the thing with the scoring. We had to read the scores 3 different times for that division, right? And then at the end of the day, we still wound up, there was a scorekeeping issue that happened, and they actually wound up announcing the wrong winner on stage. That had to be corrected later on. But again, that's a testament to how close that division was. It was insane. And you hear me elevating my voice right now because I'm thinking back to how good that division was. Those boys brought the house down. 14-17, ISKA, weapons, world championship for the boys. Shout out Mason Bumba for getting the win. Shout out to all of you for being awesome. That is the best division that I have seen in a long, long time. You guys deserve it. I'm going to dive back to the comment section one more time and see what everybody's got to say before we get out of here for the evening. Let's see. Michael Brumet called it 14-17 boys weapons US Open. Absolutely. We got the Brumet family in the chat. Let's see. Samantha Mittling, big shout out to Riley Tracy. Absolutely. His double bow form is great to watch. Love watching that kid do double bow. Let's see. All right. So that does it for the show. That's everything that I've got for you guys. Those are my personal end-of-season awards. So basically, I just wanted to do this show to give you guys an opportunity to hear some of these names, to give shout-outs to some of these great sport karate competitors. Because really, that's the reason that I do what I do with Black Belt Magazine. The reason that I do what I do is because I understand everything that sport karate did for me. I would not be the man that I am today without sport karate. I wouldn't have gotten to travel the world, and I wouldn't have gotten to help pay for my own college education. I might not have even gotten into Stanford University in the first place to get that great education if it wasn't for being a sport karate world champion. It gave me tools that I need to now become a medical student, right? I truly owe so much of my life to sport karate and all the amazing people that I've met in this sport. And I'm eternally blessed for everything that I've been able to do for others in sport karate, going and traveling and teaching seminars and sharing the sport with others. I mean, it's something that I truly hold near and dear to my heart. And that's why I do what I do to, again, spread the gospel of sport karate through Black Belt Magazine. So thank you to everybody for tuning in, giving me this platform. And congratulations to everybody that was given an award tonight. You guys all absolutely deserved it. That'll do it for episode 85 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Rudolph, and I'll see you in 2022.